Hey, it's Chael. Is Daniel around? He's not. Hey, is he drunk? No? Did he hurt his head? Did he fall off a ladder or something? Something like this that could be concerning? No, he didn't. Is he working on a comedy routine?
What is that? Hey, what is that? What was that? What was that? I mean, come on.
I'm impressed with my own
Chael?
genius on that.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. Guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Good Guy, Bad Guy. I'm Daniel Cormier. That is Chael Sonnen, who's always making fun of me. Chael, what's going on, man? How you been, my guy? How was your weekend? How was your day off last week? I
appreciate that. I've had a great week. You know, Oregon, we get a lot of rain in Oregon, but we have about 8 weeks in the summer that I would put head-to-head with anywhere in the country. I'm including San Diego. I'm including Maui. We get about 90 degrees. We have no humidity. And because of all the rain, all the grass is green, all the flowers are grown. I mean, the whole reason you live in Oregon is for these few weeks, and I'm enjoying them.
You know, you enjoy them right now, and also it's camp season. Right? You're a wrestler. You're a wrestling coach. I hear you're going out to the McPherson camp this week. It's the camp that we both love every single year. Unfortunately, I can't make it this year. But Donnie Mac, I'm thinking about you. And Uncle Chael's going to rock that building. Chael, camp season every year for us wrestlers is something really different. And as we get to the end of the summer, we're getting done with camp season.
Daniel, the McPhersons, Donnie and his son Damon, have 184 kids. It's a commuter camp. It's in the inner city. I don't know how some of these kids get here. It's a carpool situation. Like, this is a service to the community. I appreciate you shouting those guys out because they deserve some credit.
They do deserve credit. Now, Chael, let's get to the show. 3 years ago, Conor McGregor is fighting Dustin Poirier. He breaks his leg. He is on the ground screaming at Dustin Poirier and his wife. Because if you recall, Chael, we had the Abu Dhabi Conor, who was nice. Him and Dustin were almost too friendly. He was holding the hot sauce while Dustin was holding the vodka. It was kind of uncomfortable at times, or whatever kind of sells scotch maybe. It was uncomfortable at times to watch, because they were so friendly. But you saw a mature Conor McGregor. You saw a Conor McGregor that was evolved. But then you got the Conor McGregor of old in the third fight because he lost. He went back to being Uncle Scrooge. You remember that it was called DuckTales? He went back to being Uncle Scrooge, the rich guy that wanted his way, or he was mean to you. And then he breaks his leg. And then it leads to, honestly, one of the most memorable moments I've ever seen in my life. Him on the ground screaming at Dustin's wife. What do you remember about that night and the buildup of UFC 264?
You could not have done a better job at recapping everything that went into that fight. And by the way, I mean, the other side, and yes, I do remember Scrooge McDuck, they called DuckTales. See, it's going to be stuck in my head all day because of you. But
yes.
One thing that was happening is Conor came back, and I'm going back to fight two. This was in Abu Dhabi against Dustin Poirier, and that just wasn't Conor. But you could see he wanted it to be. You could see the skills there, and you and I had been there maybe at different points in our wrestling career where you take a summer off and you come back, and you're just not getting quite the performance you want it, but you're not sharp. You're a little bit rusty, and that's what happened to McGregor. So he tried to fix that. He did a quick turnaround to number 3, and he learned some lessons in number 3. He wanted to do a quick turnaround to number 4. But he gets the injury. Now it's not a choice. And I'm just sharing for you, like, if you do remember that night, and there were so many people that were critical and they were hard on Conor McGregor because he did the shout out and he talked about me DMs to the lovely Jolie Poirier. I saw it a little bit differently. I saw a performer who went down with the ship. He went till the final credits to give the audience the entertainment they tuned in for. I gained a respect for Conor, the competitor, but it was still an issue where he's right. right. He was very right in his own assessment of himself, that he was rusty, that he did take too much time off, that if he wanted to get a different result, he was going to need to turn this around and turn it around quickly. That's the one thing he wasn't able to do because of the leg injury. That's the big question for me with the Conor comeback. Can he come back? Can you come back to a 5-round atmosphere? I think it's a lot to bite off. I'm just saying, like, as you go back to that night and so many negative things are remembered about Conor, I think there might be a little bit of a different message, which is we really saw a true competitor there.
You know, when I saw Conor McGregor walk to the octagon that night, it was just a reminder of how important he is to the sport. You know what also, it showed me that he lost the one thing that he has over Dustin Poirier, or had over Dustin Poirier, and that was lost in fight number 2. When he wasn't able to take Dustin's confidence, you saw that Dustin Poirier was going to beat him. And then I felt, honestly, after the second fight, going into the third fight, I didn't know if they fought 3 more times if Dustin wasn't going to beat him. Because Dustin had found a game plan that worked against McGregor, and Dustin had also gained that idea that, wait a minute, this isn't anything different. So Dustin was a little nervous going into fight 2 because in fight 1, he felt like he was going to have a great battle. 1 punch, he's out. That doesn't happen to Dustin Poirier. So he was a little bit nervous. He had questions. He didn't know. But the moment he gained his confidence, you could see he did this to Conor. He hit Conor with a check right hook. Bam. Conor kind of goes back. Dustin points at him like, I got you. And that's when Dustin realized, I've got your timing. I've got the way you fight. You're done. And then the outside leg kicks, the low calf kicks, became such an issue for McGregor that I knew he would be limited. And when you're limited and have to stand in front of Poirier, he hits too hard. So when he got his confidence, it almost felt like it really was, Chael, just a matter of time before Dustin got him. So then fight 3 starts, and it's the same thing. Dustin's beating up that lead leg with the outside calf kick. Dustin's beating him in the boxing. It just felt like, again, Dustin Poirier was on his way to beating Conor McGregor. So for me, Chael, I thought, and I know this is going to sound kind of stupid, Conor breaking his leg was best case scenario because it felt like he was going to get knocked out again by Dustin Poirier. And I believe that would have been worse because then his fans and all the people that love him don't have the ability to go back and go, whoa, he broke his leg. That's why he lost.
Everybody, including Dana White, could step in and say, hey, we got to do it again, like this was unfinished business, right? There are some endings that are better. People say that about wrestling, that a pin is the most dominant thing you can do. It's like, no, people get caught and pinned all the time. You technical fallen guy, it shows your superiority. And you want to know why I say that? My final analysis of these guys wasn't that Dustin got better or that Conor regressed. My analysis is Dustin should have beat him the first time. If you remember that was a 26-year-old Dustin Poirier. He had never main event. He wasn't in a feature spot. Conor backed him down. They were checking in. They go to a special room to check in. It's called the VIP room. Conor approached him and backed him down in front of Dan Lambert. Had a bunch of buddies with him, and Dustin was very shy and meager. It was almost like Dustin had read the script and believed it himself. I felt like in fight 2 and even in fight 3, that was just the real Dustin fighting. That was just the Dustin that had found himself and had a little bit of confidence. I thought it was more of a commentary on how truly good Poirier is, not against Conor. I do believe in rustiness. I do believe stepping into a 5-round atmosphere is a lot to bite off when you've had a break. But I don't know that I fully agree that Conor's skills aren't where they once were. I think Dustin just found his confidence.
I thought that him breaking his leg was best case scenario. And Chael, I will say this, and I know this will go against everything that seems to be true in mixed martial arts right now. Conor McGregor also was such a tremendous striker that he was knocking people out, but he never had the ability to really wrestle. He could grapple. He could defend takedowns, but he couldn't really wrestle. I feel, and I believe this is true, and I told this to Johnny Walker when we were leaving Saudi Arabia. I go, if you cannot wrestle at all, you are always in danger of getting hit with something because you never can find safety. So, whereas Alex Pereira is able to knock people out, you saw what happened with Izzy. He can't wrestle, so you're always in just one shot away from getting knocked out. Leon Edwards can wrestle. He can take you down. He can beat you up. Dricus Du Plessis can wrestle a little bit. So when he's tired, he can go and get a takedown and he can rest. Obviously, Islam can wrestle. Ilia Topuria can wrestle. Sean O'Malley, while he may not wrestle, he's good defensively. He's got good grappling. So he has places where he can rest. Pantoja was not a world champion until he locked down his wrestling. Zhang Weili, same thing. If you're just a striker, in most instances, you're really just this close to being knocked out every time because anybody can land a punch. So Conor McGregor not having that ability to go and try to take Dustin down, to interrupt the rhythm, always put him one shot away from being knocked out. And Dustin Poirier knew that. And Dustin Poirier, once he got his confidence, was able to just go track that down.
Yeah. No, I see it very much the same way. I mean, you jumped all over a lot of fighters there, and if we're spreading the butter of praise, let me bring Jose Aldo in. I mean, Jose Aldo, as much as George St. Pierre might be the best offensive wrestler for MMA that we've seen, I thought Jose Aldo was the best defensive wrestler. Do you remember when Chad Mendes shoots in on and Jose just bumps his hip? Chad, a couple times All-America, goes flying the other direction. But Daniel, that's such a progression within our sport. You go back to the 90s when Dan Severn showed you and I that wrestling was actually a skill. It was a combat. People started treating us different in the hallways at school just because we were wrestlers and they heard what Dan Severn could do. And I'm just sharing that with you that we did learn over time. You don't have to take the guy down if you're good on your feet, like you say, Sean O'Malley, or like Israel Adesanya, and you can stop guys from getting you there. You learn a couple of defenses on your feet. You learn a couple of good scrambles on the mat. You can isolate a lot of wrestlers, and we're seeing opportunity for those strikers, but I fully get your point. If you play that game, you are playing with fire for up to 25 minutes.
Every single time. And you know what Jose Aldo did so well, Chael? When you would try to take him down, he would find his rest spots. So while you're working to take him down, he would just have his legs spread, he would push your head down, and he would just kind of sit and relax. So while you're wrestling hard trying to take him down, he's just taking his time. Conor can do that also. But because you spend that much time in the striking, that's why anybody can get knocked out. So, Chael, we're talking about Conor McGregor and his leg injury, but we want to kind of transition to what the year will look like going forward. On Monday, you and I talked about our mid-year awards. So for me, I think, and let me tell you this, Ryan and I were horrible at this, Chael. I don't know that we got one right. I mean, we did it for 2 years. I don't think we got one prediction right because it's almost impossible to predict
Hard
anything.
to listen to.
So let's do our mid-year, what we believe will happen for the rest of the year. So what I will do is I will read you something. You will finish that sentence with your explanation as to what will happen in this scenario. For one, let's start with McGregor, who we were just talking about. By the end of the year, Chael, Conor McGregor will
return. And when I talk about return, I do not predict for you that he's going to compete and he's going to have a fight, but I do believe that he's going to return. He is going to be in the gym. He's going to be very serious. I think there is another Conor McGregor under the surface there, and I think that the real Conor prefers the old Conor. I think the new Conor's a little bit tired of himself. I think he's a little bit tired of the character and the gimmick, and what he will learn over time is the fans will accept him, and we like nice Conor. We like competitive Conor. We don't mind arrogant Conor that comes out and gives some predictions and talks about Mystic Mac. In fact, we prefer that guy to 2 a.m. club Conor, to skipping press conferences Conor, to pulling out a fight Conor. We like the old Conor, and I think he needs to know that because I think he's working so hard towards this gimmick that he's marking out for it a little bit, and if he gets back to him old self, he's going to sell just as many tickets.
For me, Conor McGregor will get increasingly annoyed with the UFC because they will not have anywhere to put him. That's my prediction. He will want to fight Chael, like you said, because he will want to get back to that guy. But as you know, fight cards fill up. And Conor McGregor can't just be dropped onto any fight card. Whereas New York may be a great place to put McGregor. You can't put him on the same card as John Jones and Stipe. So he will have to find a place to fight. I don't know if that looks like December. I don't know if that looks like September. I don't know what it looks like. But as time goes on, because he will want to get back to that guy that lives in front of that red light, that guy that gets to shine on the grandest stage of all, it will be hard to find a place to put him. And because of that, I believe Conor McGregor will get increasingly annoyed with his situation to the point that he will do what he did, right? He went and did his first interview on a Bellator broadcast, right? Like, it's what he does. He plays by different rules. And that, to me, seemed like an annoyance because he wants people. Like, remember you talked about this a couple weeks ago where you said, you want to be able to say, I'm not fighting here, but I'm going to fight here. That didn't happen for McGregor. So he was annoyed. So he went and did the thing on Bellator. So it's like, I think he'll be annoyed with his inability to get a fight card by the end of the year. All right, Chael, number 2. Now, this is fun. This is my guy right here. By the end of the year, Michael Chandler will finally
assume his new role as a weatherman. I feel that's what he's prepping for. Okay, now picture him. Picture what he's asking for. He's asking for a fight with Conor McGregor that simply can't happen, but he's staying on it, right? He's staying noble. He's staying dependent. Picture Michael Chandler wearing rain gear. Okay, I'm talking about the yellow jacket. The hood is up. He's got a microphone. He's broadcasting a potential storm coming while he's standing in the middle of the Sahara Desert, because that is as much opportunity as he's going to have to fight Conor McGregor. He's got to move on. You said that Chandler's your guy. I feel the same way towards him. I feel when Chandler fights, right, there's a brotherhood. We're all wrestlers, and it's just one of those situations. He's got to move on. He allegedly, all in the last week, has been offered a world title fight against Islam. Then he got in the way of his own headline and stepped in front of it and has called out Nathan Diaz for the spear. Now, I got all sorts of problems with that. 1, different weight class. 2, he called out a guy that's not even signed to the organization. 3, he's well aware from Conor in his own instances that when you re-enter the pool, there's a rule that some interpret that you got to wait for up to 180 days, which would certainly apply to Nate. Not to mention the spear has 2 rumored world title main events, which means Chandler and Diaz, if they were put on it, are jerking the curtain at 7 o'clock. None of those things are going to happen, but he knows that. He was working a different angle. He is trying to show Conor, I have power and I want to move on. He has not given up on the idea of still getting in there with McGregor.
Let me tell you something. Michael Chandler, for me, will finally fight Chael. He's going to fight. I believe he's going to fight somebody because now, like you said, he's starting to put irons in the fire. So, 1, he did the Diaz thing. 2, he did the Poirier thing. But now, Poirier's like just blazing this dude. Poirier's like, who's we? You just got here. Welcome to the UFC. You got 1 UFC win. You're not one of us. I've been cutting my teeth here since 2011-10. You just got here. He goes, Muscle Milk Mike needs to chill. So, Doug, these guys are starting to go at each other. For me, I love this for Chandler because it tells me, Chael, he's ready to move on a little bit, or at least, Chael, pretend he's ready to move on. Conor McGregor can't know.
If I can throw one thing at you, and I'm personalizing this, but a day that I got more street cred, if you will, and I could feel it. I went to a small show in Portland. I could feel the audience. I could feel the way I was being sought after. All that happened is in the same week, Rampage Jackson refused to fight me because he said I was just going to take him down, which was a big compliment, and John Jones turned a fight down against me. I didn't do anything. I wasn't in that weight class. I never threw a punch. I never did a single thing. Dan, you should have seen the way that people were treating me. Like John and Rampage don't know how much they served me. And you know why I tell you that? Michael Chandler, behind the scenes, his number one motivation to fight Conor McGregor, it was not some big, huge, lucrative payday like so many people think. Michael Chandler was playing a long game. He thought I match up very well. Conor's got the fans. I go in there. I beat him. I leave with all the fans. Well, he's kind of there. I mean, in all fairness, we're all chomping at the bit to see Michael Chandler. I don't believe Chandler won his last fight. I thought it was against Poirier and he lost. I could have that wrong when it was the Tony Ferguson, but what I'm trying to suggest for you is it doesn't really matter. Michael Chandler, I believe, is a top 5 draw right now, and I don't believe after his last fight that he was. I think all this media, all this attention, the things that are dangling, you and I discussing him, I think he's actually gone up. I think he got what he wanted without having to throw a punch.
You know what? You're right. It actually worked. It actually worked. So he beat Dan Hooker, then he lost to Charles Oliveira, then he lost to Dustin Poirier, but he beat Tony Ferguson. He's 2-2. You're right, Chael. He didn't need to fight Conor McGregor. All he needed to be was linked to him, and it raised his profile. Maybe Michael Chandler has been smarter than all of us the whole time, because now when he goes back to fight, more people will pay attention. But yeah, I believe he's going to fight. He's putting irons in the fire, and I'm happy for Iron Michael Chandler. All right. By the end of the year, who will be the #1 pound-for-pound fighter?
#1 pound-for-pound fighter, I think, is going to go to Alex Pereira. I got bad news on Pierre, by the way, DC. Your days of seeing him fight are close to behind you. And I don't mean because he's going to retire. 2 guys in my lifetime, Anderson Silva and Mike Tyson, went into a category where they had such fear. They would shut people down in the locker room. People would stop calling them out. They would get a phone call, you got to fight him. Oh, man, I don't want to do that fight. And their whole training camp would be about, how do I leave here safely? And the reason I say that for you, Pierre is going to be to that point. And when I tell you that you're not going to get to see him fight, all the guys up to this point, including Yuri Prochazka 2 Saturdays ago, went out there and competed. They went out there and believed they could beat him. They saw a blueprint, and they went out there and they tried to execute. I predict for you, aside from Ankalaev, there's not a 205-pounder out there that wants him, that's going to call him out, or that is going to compete to their full ability. Pierre is going to go into the category of Anderson and Mike Tyson, which is almost a stoic enigma.
It's going to still be Makhachev for me. Just because I don't know when he's going to fight. Chill. If he doesn't fight by the end of the year, I'd imagine he's going to fight in Abu Dhabi in October. That's generally where Makhachev fights. If he doesn't, though, I don't know how anything changes. So for me, I think it'll still be Makhachev, but I do believe that Tsarukyan is the toughest fight that he has left in that division. But your arguments for Pereira do make sense, and I do believe that if Ankalaev does not get it done against him, it will seem as though he has a real long, runway to defending that championship because of the way the matchups break down for him at 205 right now. All right, Chael. By the end of the year, Alex Pereira will fight.
All right, Daniel, I got to tell you, you cut out. I was trying to adjust my microphone here, but I think that you are asking me for a prediction on who Pereira will fight. And I do think it's going to be Ankalaev. I know there's some resistance there, but there speaks to something about willingness. And Pierre is willing to fight him to the point that he's been calling him out. Ankalaev is the only 205-pounder that is even making a claim, a rightful claim to that title, to the point that the pundits that don't want to see that fight because they know the risk. They don't want to run the risk of switching roles, of bringing Pereira down and putting Ankalaev on top, are talking about getting Pereira to heavyweight. That simply is not going to happen until he cleans out the division. As a matter of fact, contrary to popular belief, the best way for Pereira to become a heavyweight is to lose at 205 pounds. And yes, you heard me correctly. He became a 205-pounder because he lost at 185. Not because he ran through the division. He went through it a second time and there was nothing else to do. He got beat. And Dana doesn't like guys to change weight classes. That's true. But that is reserved exclusively for his champions. If you're not a champion and you like to make a phone call to change weight classes, you're welcome to do it. And I think there's massive opportunity for Pierre. I think champ status is something that is in his future as far as getting the opportunity. I'll just remind people, you don't get him there by going through Ankalaev. You get him there if somebody, and that could include Ankalaev, could bring him down.
Yeah, that makes sense. It'll be Ankalaev because I believe that at some point you have to honor a guy that has won as much as Ankalaev has won. And you also have to allow Pereira to silence the doubters once again. And he wants to. And I believe that part of the reason Ankalaev is going to get the fight is because Alex has this need or desire to show people that it won't take just any wrestler to take him down and hold him down. He has this idea and he has this point to prove that he can fight a wrestler, he can get through a wrestler. But if he can fight Ankalaev and he can defend takedowns and he doesn't get rolled for 25 minutes, that would be horrible news for everyone in the light heavyweight division. All right, Chael. Next one. By the end of the year, the women's bantamweight champion will be, and I'm going first on this one, because I'm not going to let you go every time the first time, and I have to react to you every time because you're just too good at this and it pisses me off. Okay, the women's bantamweight champion will be Raquel Pennington. You want me to tell you why it'll be Raquel Pennington? I don't know when she's going to fight. I literally have not heard any rumblings of her fighting. Chael, when was the last time you heard or saw someone become a champion in what, January? I think she might have won that belt in January. I have not heard any whispers of her fighting again. I don't know that she fights this year. And if you don't fight, you don't lose the belt. So I don't know if anyone but Raquel Pennington will have an opportunity to fight for the belt before the end of the year. It feels like we're going Raquel Pennington versus Juliana Pena. But even Juliana hasn't said anything about a championship fight. So for me, it feels like we're in July. We haven't heard any whispers. Look, we know at some point Sean O'Malley is going to fight Merab Dvalishvili, right? That's because it's been said. That'll happen this year at some point. We know that Ankalaev and Pereira will fight at some point this year. We know that Jones will fight Stipe. We know that Leon Edwards is fighting Bilal Muhammad next month. We know that Islam will fight Arman Sarukian. We know that Pantoja will fight again. We literally know every single title fight. Valentina will fight against Alexa. Zhang Weili, we don't know who she's fighting yet because she's beat everybody, but there is someone. We've heard about fights for these people. We haven't heard anything about Raquel Pennington. I don't know that she fights.
My answer, the women's bantamweight champion by the end of the year will be the winner between the Venezuela Vixen and Kayla Harrison, albeit an interim championship, because, Daniel, I see it the same way you do. I believe there is something going on there, and I believe the ladies have heard, and that's why she's not getting called out. That's why Raquel isn't out there punching her own ticket. I mean, listen, if I'm the champion of the world and some new gal comes in, I don't care if she has a good fight against Holly Holm or not. I'm going to put my foot down. I'm going to make sure that it is heard. If I believe that that new girl, in this case it's Kayla Harrison, does not yet qualify for #1 contendership, that the UFC on the second floor during the War Room every Tuesday is not going to give her the opportunity, I'm calling her out even stronger, because now I have nothing to risk. I feel as though there's a secret being kept about Pennington, and at some point we're going to get on with it, and we're going to get on with it in the form of an interim title, Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena.
Hey, so let me ask you this, Chill. If Kayla Harrison and Juliana Pena fight for an interim championship, and with the way that Mayra Bueno Silva and Raquel Pennington fought, will you consider that person the champion? Because it would seem like this would be a higher quality fight. I'm trying so hard not to be disrespectful to the champion. And would it feel like that's the real champion?
And I don't feel you are being disrespectful. I understand your point. And in fairness, when you talk to Pennington, she's very objective young lady. I'm not sure if she was here that she would disagree. You know, Tom Aspinall went through something like this. He wanted to be the champion. He said, well, you can't be the undisputed champion. That designation is put over here with Jon Jones. And he kind of went through a different litany of what champion am I then? I don't want to just be interim champion. Can I be the active champion? Can I be the current champion? And I only share that with you because when you ask me how I would look at that title, I like interim belts. I'm one of the few. I like more opportunity. I was thrilled when the BMF came in. I wish we would bring the super fight belt back for that matter. I like to see those opportunities. I know people at your level, it gets so competitive that you're splitting hairs, but I don't care what comes before world champion. I don't care if you want to put bantamweight, if you want to put featherweight, if you want to put interim, or if you want to put undisputed. If it ends in world champion, it counts for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom Aspinall's reaction to getting that belt told me enough, right? That's all I needed to see. A guy becoming interim champion, having that level of emotion to, you know what it meant. Hey, Chill, how about Tom Aspinall? He leaves the octagon. Dude's crying with his dad, hugging Michael Bisping. Bisping jumps into the damn celebration like he's a part of the team. Bisping, sit down, man. You're not part of Tom Aspinall's team. All right, Chill. By the end of the year, Jon Jones will defend that world championship, and guess what? Win or lose, he is not retiring. That whole retirement thing was like a marketing angle, and Jon jumped on board with it, and now it's getting a little closer, and he's starting to pull it back. It's not a matter of pull it back. He never meant it in the first place. Jon Jones is such a diehard competitor that he left his own division, waited 3 years to bulk up to pursue the heavyweight title. He's not giving that thing back. If it was up to Jon Jones, he would have competed with the hurt pack muscle, and that's just the truth. There is a gap between Jon and everybody else, and he's not leaving that on the table. No, yeah, Jon Jones will fight. Jon Jones will fight Stipe Miocic in New York City It will be a mega event. It will be one of the biggest events Madison Square has ever seen. But Jon Jones will be back. And honestly, I'm excited to see Jon Jones fight against these young guys because now I get to see Jon Jones in the position we were in. We're fighting him because he was so young and all of us were super old. The first time we fought, I was 36 years old. When I fought him the second time, I was 38. Now we will see Jon Jones on the other side of the coin against these young fighters like Tom Aspinall. But if you have seen him compete, you know or believe that he can do it against anyone, regardless of age, especially as people are able now to compete older in life. LeBron James is starting season 20 for the Los Angeles Lakers and is turning 40 years old. That was unheard of before. All right, chill. By the end of the year, how many Diaz brothers will fight in the UFC? I'm going first. One, it will be Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz will fight against Vicente Luque in Abu Dhabi. And Nick Diaz will go out there and hopefully have a great showing for himself. But, Chael, I really, for the life of me, can't understand this matchmaking. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it's happening in this way. I don't know why you have Vicente Luque and Michael Chiesa, who are both still young, active guys fighting Diaz and Ferguson. It just made too much sense to put Diaz and Ferguson together because they're both pretty much at the tail end and at the finish line. But for me, I believe that Nick will fight, and my hope is that Nick can have one more night where he looks like the Nick Diaz of old, because the guy we saw last time pretty much just didn't want to fight anymore against Robbie Lawler. And honestly, at that point, Chael, Robbie was thought to be done like Nick, but on that night proved that he still had so much more left. All the wars and everything took a toll on Nick Diaz. But it will be one, and it'll be Nick Diaz fighting in Abu Dhabi.
And Daniel, sports are different. Like, if you're in shape is not a thing. That's a misconception. If you're in shape to run a marathon, if you're in shape to swim a mile, if you're in shape to fight, you know why I bring that up? I believe that Nick is in pretty good shape. I know that he's cardio Nick. I know that he loves to do a number of those things. You cannot be in shape for fighting without fighting. You could bring me the Boston Marathon winner, put them in the wrestling room with me. I will have them exhausted within 1 minute. I will have their heart beating out of their chest in ways that they never even knew were possible. Meanwhile, I could take a UFC champion, put him in the Boston Marathon, and he's not going to be anywhere near the finish line. And the reason I tell you that, when you talk about this matchmaking, they thought, okay, we got Luque, and he's pretty active, and we got Nick, and he's not. So that's going to favor Luque tremendously. So let's level the playing field. Let's make it 5 rounds, and adding those extra couple of rounds will be good for Nick. I don't think so. I don't see how it would be. It's not the case when he fought Robbie Lawler, just by example. It was getting to the finish line that was so difficult. I don't think Nick takes the knee and calls it off if there was 30 seconds left in the final round. He did it when there was 30 seconds left in the second round, knowing this is going to be a long night if I stay out here. I'm only offering for you, it's a hard night out. And Nick somewhere had somebody calling a favor, because this is just not the kind of thing that Dana would normally make. The difference is Nick needs 2 favors, right? He needs the Luque fight, and then he's a guaranteed other one where he can have a quick turnaround. That's what he wanted after Robbie Lawler. He knew this is going to be an ugly night with Lawler. Win or lose, it's going to be a rough night. But it's to get those cobwebs off, get me right back in there. The opposite ended up happening. They did the opposite of getting him right back in there, and they added 2 rounds to it.
It's a harder fight, man. It's a much harder fight. But it'll be one. It'll be one. All right. This is your turn. You go first. By the end of the year, Dustin Poirier will
fight again. And again, fight again doesn't necessarily mean compete. It means that he will announce it. Look, he gave us, and I got to give us credit, but he came on our program and he told the crowd, yes, if it was interesting, I would like to do one more. And that is just a very different answer. Like, you'll see guys who's, they got one foot in and 1 foot out as they're thinking about leaving. This is the opposite. People thought he was leaving, and he's making sure that foot stays in. Dustin Poirier is not ready to go. Here, I'll share some inside scoop with you, Daniel. But you guys were down calling the fights at 302. You were talking about, Ige is going to come in, and he's going to compete with Lopez. I was sitting next to Dustin Poirier, and he turned to me and said, why didn't they ask me? I would have done the fight. Then Michael Chandler and he was very sincere when he said, I just looked over to him, but I could hear by the tone of the look in his eyes. Michael Chandler was somewhere else, and Michael Chandler said, I would have done the fight. And Poirier went a step further to me and said, I would have fought Michael Chandler. So I'm just sharing with you. That was on no notice, and he was not joking. He is not done yet. And I believe the fight out there for him is going to be Justin Gaethje.
I think he's going to walk that back. He's going to walk back that retirement talk. I don't believe that he wants to be done fighting. It's hard for me when these guys talk about retirement when they're still so young. Dustin Poirier, while he has fought a lot, and he's been around the UFC for a long time, he's still a very young guy. I mean, what's he, 32 years old, 33, 34? He's got many, many good years left to fight. And I believe that walking away from fighting when you really have no other choice is one thing. I was 41 years old. I knew I was done. Walking away from fighting at 35 is a much different thing because you know that when you get to 40 and 41, when you don't have the option to come back, you're going to regret it. So I believe Dustin Poirier walks it back by the end of the year and says he's going to be coming back and he will be fighting again. I don't know when. I don't know who, but I do believe that he's going to want to fight again. All right, last one, Chael. By the end of the year, who will upset a current champion?
And by the way, just the tail end of that last one, we were kind of dismissing Nick Diaz's chances. Look, Nick Diaz is a very live dog, and if Nick does get over on Luque, Nick versus Poirier is not the worst idea I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Right, just for the fans and doing it for fun. All right, now what was the question? By the end of the year, who's going to upset a champion? Wow. I think that Stipe Miocic is in a very good spot, and I want to tell you why. I happened to see Stipe 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas for 302. He was out there doing some media and some things with the expo, and I happened to just go up and say, what do you weigh? And he weighed 252 pounds. And the reason I tell you that, the entire idea of Jon Jones leaving light heavyweight and coming up to the heavyweight division was to spot the other guy. He's going to openly spot the other guy some kind of advantage because Jon was so clearly dominant at 205. But when he ended up with Ciryl Gane, there wasn't that real weight discrepancy. These guys were almost the same thing. But if Stipe does in fact come in at 252, and that's very different. The first time you fought him, he was 246. The second time you fought him, he was 233. Somehow Stipe's weight was going down. He weighed in against Francis, just to remind everybody, at 231. I didn't know if he was sick or maybe he had changed his diet. His wife said none of the above. He's training the same. I'm feeding him the same. We're not really sure why he's losing weight. But after he lost to Francis, Stipe thought that he was going to draw into a trilogy against Francis, and he realized, I got to be more man. I got to have more size on me, and he buckled down and focused. The same thing that Jon Jones did to gain weight. Stipe did the same thing. He added the right kind of weight, and that's going to change the perception for power, ability for takedowns. The right Stipe is going to show up at Madison Square Garden, and he is primed to get a victory.
I think that is probably what I'm going to agree with you on. Just because a lot of the other matchups, if the other guy won, it wouldn't be considered an upset. If Max Holloway somehow beats Ilia Topuria, how do you call it an upset? If Belal Muhammad beats Leon Edwards, is it really an upset considering the first fight was relatively competitive? Ankalaev wins, is it an upset? Like, if Izzy beats Duplessis, is it an upset? It's not an upset. So when thinking upset, the one that would look like the biggest upset would be Jones-Stipe. So there's an opportunity. I will not go so far as to say it will happen, but if there is someone that has an opportunity to score an upset, because it's one of the only upsets, I would say Jones and Miocic, or Curtis Blades upsetting Tom Aspinall. But hell, how's it an upset when Curtis Blades won the first fight, Chael? So let's see if any of these predictions come true by the end of the year. I don't believe that they will, because I can't imagine, Chael, that you and I would be much better at this than Ryan and I were, because we were just horrible at it. Now, in terms of predictions, this weekend, Rose Namajunas will fight against Tracy Cortez. With that being said, I'm not going to ask you for a prediction. But what I will ask you for is, if this fight is entertaining and whoever wins this fight, will they find an opportunity to take on Alexa Grasso at UFC 306, which is the Sphere, considering Tracy Cortez said that Valentina doesn't want to fight her there? Will this person have an opportunity to fight for the belt? So does this fight take on more importance?
And boy, I mean, you dropped the real gem right there. We should really be digging into Valentina and exactly what she is thinking. She understood this deal, Daniel. I was part of the negotiation. I understood this deal. I understood fully that we're going to do the Ultimate Fighter. We're going to come on the backside and we're going to do that title match at the Spear. I will admit, Valentina said from Jump Street, I'm not doing it. I did want it home for you, and you got to come to home for me. I just thought that she knew, since we have never done a match in that territory before, that it was just kind of hyperbole. Apparently, she means it a little bit more than I had realized, and I think others had realized. And I want to tell you yes to your question. Thug Rose, and I just spoke to her. Listen, one thing about Thug Rose, Daniel, and even when I hear her own voice, even when I hear her talking, she does not like changes. She is not into Maycee Barber coming out and Tracy Cortez coming in, just for example. But I could go over the history of her career where she does not like that turn, where she feels it's against her. And you know what, Daniel? If I did that very thing, I won't show you a single time that she lost. She does her best work when she hates these situations. She does her best work when she feels that she's up against it. She does her best work when she thinks they're trying to dismiss her, counter out, and get her out of there. That's how she won the world championship the first time over Wei Lee. That's how she came back at Madison Square Garden in a rematch against Wei Lee in a fight that she was losing. She is at her best when she feels victimized. She is upset about this. It is not what she initially agreed to, and I think she's going to perform very well because of it.
You know, I believe that this fight is very important, considering that those added stipulations, right? Anytime there's a stipulation on a fight or a wrestling match, I'm all in. I believe by Tracy Cortez saying, I'll turn right around, go and fight on Mexican Independence Day. Now she's wearing Mexico jerseys everywhere she goes. She really is going all in on, this is my chance to earn an opportunity to fight for a world title. I think it's great. I think it works. I think it's going to be a phenomenal fight. I can't say that this fight is better than Maycee Barber, because Maycee Barber's got so much momentum going right now. But Tracy Cortez has fought really well. Tracy Cortez has a great story, and we all know how special Rose Namajunas is. So this fight night from Denver is going to be phenomenal. The main event is a women's flyweight bout. Starts Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus, 7 p.m. Pacific. Watch Rose Namajunas take on Tracy Cortez. Hopefully, at least for them, there's a big matchup that is granted to them if they can get their hand raised. Chael, another great show, another great week, man. I always enjoying it. You are the man, my guy. Enjoy the rest of camp. Enjoy the rest of summer, guys. Every week, Chael and I are here Monday and Thursday. Get us on ESPN MMA YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. For the bad guy, Chael Sonnen, I'm Daniel Cormier. We're going to catch you on the next one.